My name is Sarah. I am 32 years old, and I am the mother of 3 wonderful children. My daughters are Emma, Grace, and little Ava. They are not just my children. They are my reason to wake up every morning. My life was never easy. When I was a teenager, I lost my mother. After that, I learned very early that life does not always give us what we want. Years later, I got married and thought my life would finally become peaceful. But I was wrong. My husband left us when our youngest daughter was only a few months old. One morning, he simply walked out of our small apartment. He promised he would come back. He never did. He stopped calling. He stopped asking about the children. He never sent money. At first, I waited for him. Then I stopped waiting. I realized that if I wanted my children to have a future, I had to become both their mother and their father. I had no rich relatives. I had no savings. I had no big house. I did not even have a proper job. All I had were 3 little girls who believed their mother could solve every problem. So I decided I would never let them see me give up. We lived in a tiny rented apartment. Every month, I worried about the rent. Every week, I worried about groceries. Sometimes I counted every coin before going to the supermarket. I worked as a delivery driver. I did not own a vehicle, so I rented an old car whenever I could afford it. Every morning, I left home before sunrise. I delivered food, packages, and sometimes drove passengers. I worked in the heat. I worked in the rain. I worked when my body was exhausted. And sometimes, I worked while tears were hiding behind my eyes. But whenever I came home and saw my daughters running toward me, I forgot how tired I was. One evening, Emma asked me, "Mom, are we going to have a better house someday?" I smiled and said, "Of course, sweetheart." She looked at me and believed me. That night, after the girls went to sleep, I stood beside their beds. They looked so peaceful. I gently pulled the blanket over Ava. Then I kissed each of them on the forehead. I whispered, "I promise I will give you a better life." I did not know how I would do it, but I believed somehow I would. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a freezing winter evening. The sky was dark, and heavy rain was falling. The roads were slippery, and visibility was terrible. I had the 3 girls with me because I had picked them up after school. Grace was sitting beside me. Emma and Ava were in the back seat. Ava was shivering. "Mom, I'm really cold," she said. "I know, sweetheart. We're almost home." I turned the heater up, but the old car was barely producing any warmth. I drove slowly. The windshield was covered with rain. The road was almost empty. I held the steering wheel tightly. Then, without warning, I saw bright headlights coming toward us. Everything happened in seconds. A loud horn. A sudden turn. A terrible crash. The sound of breaking glass. Then darkness. When I opened my eyes, I could not understand where I was. I saw a bright white ceiling. I heard machines beeping. There was a strong smell of medicine. I tried to move, but pain went through my entire body. Then one thought entered my mind. My children. I tried to speak. Emmer. Grace. Aver. My voice was barely audible. Please don't try to move, as she said gently. I grabbed her hand. My daughters. Where are my daughters? The nurse smiled. They are safe. They have some small injuries, but they are okay. Tears immediately filled my eyes. Can I see them? You will. Just give yourself a little time. A few minutes later, the hospital room door opened. 3 little girls came running toward me. Mom! They surrounded my bed. Emmer was crying. Grace held my hand. Little Aver buried her face against my arm. I cried with them. I wanted to hold them tightly, but my body was too weak. The doctor soon entered the room. He looked serious. You were very lucky, he said. But you have a serious injury to your leg. You will need surgery, and you will have to stay in bed for some time. My heart sank. How long? At least several weeks before you can return to normal work. Several weeks. I immediately thought about the rent, the food, the children's school expenses. Everything depended on me. Then I remembered the car. The vehicle I had rented was badly damaged in the accident. And there was another terrible problem. The car I had crashed into belonged to a businessman. It was a very expensive vehicle. The repair bill was enormous. The owner demanded almost $15,000. I didn't even know where I would find $1,500. That night, I sat quietly in my hospital bed. The girls were sleeping beside me. I looked at them and felt completely helpless. For the first time in years, I wondered, how am I going to survive this? I covered my face and started crying. I had always been the strong one. But that night, I felt broken. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A nurse came into my room. Sarah, there are people outside who want to help you. I looked at her with confusion. Who? She showed me her phone. Someone had posted about my accident online. The story had spread quickly. People had read about the single mother who worked day and night for her children. They had seen pictures of my daughters. Strangers began sending small donations. Some sent $20. Some sent $50. Others sent whatever they could afford. I could not believe it. People who had never met me were trying to save my family. Then, 2 days later, I received a phone call. A man's voice said, "Are you Sarah?" "Yes." "I heard about your accident." I became nervous. "Who are you?" "My name is Daniel. I want to help you." I didn't know what to say. "I don't understand. Why would you help someone you don't know?" There was a short silence. Then he answered, "Because someone once helped my family when we had nothing." His words stayed in my heart. 2 days later, Daniel arrived at the hospital with a small group of people. They brought clothes, food, toys, and blankets for my daughters. But that was only the beginning. Daniel sat beside my bed. "You don't owe me anything," he said. I started crying. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "Just promise me you won't give up." I nodded. Then he told me something I never expected to hear. His team had paid my hospital expenses. The medical bills were covered. The damaged car was taken care of. Even the money demanded by the other car's owner was settled. For the first time in months, I could breathe without fear. But Daniel had one more surprise. A few weeks later, when I was able to walk with the help of crutches, he took me and my daughter somewhere. We stopped in front of a beautiful house. I stared at it. "Why are we here?" Daniel smiled. "This is your new home." I thought I had misunderstood him. "What?" "You and your girls don't have to live in that small apartment anymore." I could not speak. He handed me the keys. "This house is yours." My hands began to shake. I looked at my daughters. Emma was crying. Grace was smiling. Little Ava asked, "Mommy, do we really live here?" I fell to my knees. I cried harder than I had ever cried before. I hugged my daughters. "We have a home," I whispered. For years, I had dreamed of saying those words. Now they were finally true. Months passed. My leg became stronger. My daughters returned to school. Our lives slowly changed. One afternoon, Daniel visited us. We sat in the garden while the girls played. He asked me, "Sarah, if money was not a problem, what would you really want to do with your life?" I thought about it. For years, I had only thought about surviving. But there was one dream I had buried deep inside my heart. "I want to own a small grocery store," I said. Daniel smiled. Why a grocery store? Because I want to build something that belongs to me. I want my daughters to see their mother as more than someone who is always struggling. Daniel looked at me and said, "Then let's build it." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He helped me create a business plan. He introduced me to people who knew the business. He helped me find a suitable location. And after months of hard work, something unbelievable happened. I opened my own little supermarket. On the first morning, I stood outside the store holding the keys. I looked at the sign above the door. My name was written on it. I started crying. I remembered the woman I used to be. The woman who drove rented cars for 12 hours a day. The woman who counted every coin. The woman who sometimes cried quietly because she didn't want her children to see her weakness. And now I was standing in front of my own business. My daughters were beside me. Emma hugged me. "You did it, Mom." I smiled through my tears. "No, sweetheart." I looked at all three girls. We did it. The store slowly became successful. Customers came every day. We sold fresh vegetables, bread, milk, fruits, and household items. My daughters sometimes helped me after school. Our little store became more than a business. It became a symbol of everything we had survived. I never forgot Daniel. But I also learned something important. Daniel had helped me, but many other people had helped too. The nurse, the doctors, the strangers who donated money, the people who shared my story, the people who sent messages of encouragement. Sometimes we think we are completely alone. But kindness can come from the most unexpected places. My life did not change because I suddenly became lucky. It changed because, during the darkest moment of my life, someone chose to be kind. And that kindness gave me enough hope to keep moving. Today, when I look at my daughters, I don't see the three little girls who once lived in a tiny apartment with a word mother. I see three beautiful young women with dreams in their eyes. And I know something now. Having a difficult beginning does not mean you will have a difficult ending. Sometimes life takes everything away before giving you something better. Sometimes the door closes because another door is waiting to open. And sometimes a stranger can become the reason you start believing in humanity again. I still remember that cold night. The rain. The accident. The hospital. The fear. I remember thinking that my life was over. But it wasn't over. It was only changing. Today, I have a home. I have a business. I have peace in my heart. And most importantly, I have my daughters beside me. If you are listening to my story and you are going through a difficult time, I want you to remember one thing. Please don't give up. You may not know what tomorrow has planned for you. Your situation may look impossible today. You may feel like nobody cares. But life can change in a single moment. Keep working. Keep believing. Keep your heart kind. And never stop hoping for a better tomorrow. Because sometimes, when you think you have reached the end of your story, it is actually the beginning of your greatest chapter. Thank you for listening to my story. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon. Until then, stay strong, keep hope alive, and always believe that kindness can change a life. See you in the next story.